Do you want to spice up your photos so they go from ordinary to extraordinary? If so, stick around and I'll show you some of the tips for doing just that. Welcome to my quickie tutorial where I'm going to show you how to spice up your photos by adding and blending textures. This is a technique that I use to give my photos a painterly look, and it's really fun to play with and a great way to get your creative juices flowing. I'll be using an older version of Photoshop called CS2, and even though it was released in 2005, it's still a very powerful tool. And if you don't have CS2, I've left a link in the description to a video that shows you how to download and activate a legal copy for you to use. I've also left a link to all the files used in this tutorial so you can download and try out the techniques I'm going to show you on your own. Alright, here we've got Photoshop open, and we're going to bring in our original photograph. We're going to go to Open, and here's our egg on a black desktop with a gray background. Now the first thing I always do when I open up a new photograph is go to the background here and duplicate this layer. And then I delete the original background layer as we don't need it anymore. And that way we're not just doing any destruction to it at all. We still got that file to work with in the future. Alright, so first thing I want to show you how to do is how to use the magic wand to make a selection. So for starters, we need to set the magic wand tool, and right now let's set the tolerance, and the tolerance is determined by the color range of the selected pixels. So what it amounts to is you can enter a value in pixels ranging from 0 to 255, and a low value selects a few colors similar to the pixels you click, while a higher value selects a broader range of colors. So let me show you how that works. We're going to start with a tolerance of 35. All right, we're going to click on our egg here, and you'll notice that we have a area of our egg that has been selected. Now we want to add to this selection, and to do that we need to hold down the Shift key and click outside of our selection a little ways, and it gives us a little more of the egg. And then we're going to go even farther, and again hold down the Shift key and click outside, and it's going to give us a little bit more. We're going to do it again, outside, Shift key, gives us a little bit more. And at this point our tonal range is pretty close, so we're going to need to adjust this some. So I'm going to take it down to, say, I don't know, 12 maybe. Let's try 12. And then go over here and hold the Shift key so we're adding to our selection. And notice we get too much at this point. So what you got to do when that happens is go up to Edit, step backwards, and then adjust our tolerance. So let's bring it down even farther to, say, 8. All right, try this at 8. Remember to hold your Shift key down. A little bit more of the egg again. We'll just keep adding to our selection until we got the entire egg. Now that doesn't look too bad right there. So I'm going to show you now how to create a layer mask. And to do that, we're going to go down here, and there's a little icon. It's a square with a circle inside of it. And we're going to click on that. And it adds our layer mask. Notice over here next to our layer, we now have another square or rectangle, and that's our layer mask. And the layer mask is going to be black and white, and anything that is black in a mask is invisible, and anything that's white is visible. And what we can do is add or subtract from our layer mask using a white brush or a black brush. So let me show you how that works. We're going to select our brush tool, and it's white. So anything that I paint over now brings the mask back in. As you can see here, as I add to our egg places that the magic wand missed. Now I'm not going to get real detailed with this because this is a quickie tutorial, so I don't want to take a bunch of time, and it's not going to be real critical with this because when we get to a blending mode, it's actually going to not show. We're not going to see these little arrows in our outline. I do want to show you one other thing here, is how we can use the black tool. Let me go over this with the white a little bit more, add some. And I'm going to make an error here in a second. Say I go over here and I go outside of my egg. Well, what I can do is flip my brush to a black brush. Make sure I got my brush selected, and I can go in here, and now the black brush deletes from my layer mask. So none of this is destructive. My original image is still underneath everything, and I can make any adjustments that I need. All right, so we're gonna come back to this brush in a bit. Let's bring my zoom to fit on the screen, and we'll come back to this in a minute. The next thing I want to do is open our first texture. So I'm going to go to File and Open, and we're going to select this blue brush stroke texture and open it, and it's going to open up over top of our image. And what we're going to do now is use our Move tool and click on that, and we're going to click and drag the texture into our image. So I click and hold my left mouse button, drag the image over, or drag the texture over into the image and let go, and it pops up over here. Now let's go back. Since we don't need that texture anymore, we're going to delete that. Now what we need to do now is resize our texture to fit over top of our entire image. So we go up to Edit and Free Transform, and notice these little nodes pop up around our texture. Now these will let us stretch it in different directions. Just grab a node, click and hold and pull, and it lets us stretch the size of our texture. And we want to cover our entire image here, so I'm grabbing the corners and pulling it. And then once you've got it so that it covers the entire image, oh, we missed a little bit over here, we need to anchor this texture. And you do that by hitting Enter. And you'll notice our little noise and everything in the outline go away from this. Now, I can't tell you how many times I have forgotten to do this, and if you don't anchor it, if you don't hit that Enter key, it won't let you continue on, and you'll be sitting there trying to do things and nothing works, and you go, what in the world's happening here? So reminder, if things aren't working, it's probably because you forgot to hit that Enter key and anchor that texture or anchor that layer. All right, so we resized our texture and we anchored it. Let's go back to our mask now and click on it, and let's invert it. And the way we do that is with Control and I. And notice our mask went from the background being black to being white, and the egg being white to being black. So now we're going to move this mask up to this textured layer. So we're going to hold down the Alt key, we're going to click and hold our mask, and we're going to pull it up and let go of it. And that creates a copy on top of this texture. Now we're going to go back here to our original mask, click on it, right click, and delete it, because we don't need it now. So now our egg's showing through. Okay, now we want to select our texture layer, and I want to show you here some blending modes, and this is where it gets really fun. If we click on this little down arrow, you'll see we have 5 groups of blending modes. There's Darken, I'll show you that. All right, and Multiply, Color Burn, and Linear Burn. These are all under the Darken box. You'll notice how there's lines that separate it. Then we've got Lighten, and then under Lighten we have Screen, Color Dodge, and Linear Dodge. And then under the next section is Overlay, and under this we have Soft Light, Hard Light, Vivid Light, Linear Light, Pen Light, and Hard Mix. Then we have another section that's Difference, and it gives us Difference and Exclusion. And then our next section is Hue, which is color, and our options there are saturation, color, and luminosity. So you can play with all those blending modes and really create some neat stuff. Now here's a quick way if you want to, scroll through these really quick to see what the difference is. If you select where you have this blue over top of the name of the blending mode, and you hit Control and your arrow keys, your down arrow keys or your up arrow keys, you notice how it changes here as I'm cursoring through, It shows you all the different blending modes, so you can go through and see what you like and what you don't like. All right, so now something else I want to show you. Let's go to, say, a darken or a multiply. Well, let's go to a different one. Let's go to overlay. I think that's what we're ultimately going to use. And something you can do with each of these textures is control the opacity. And you can do that by dragging your slider, and you see how you can change how intense that texture is. And it works really well. Some of the other ones that you might not like lighten, if you change the opacity and pull that slider down, you can bring it into an area that you might actually like. All right, so there's a lot of things you can do to play with that. You can change the blending mode and you can change the opacity. Now, something else we can do is go up to image, and any of the adjustments you normally use on a photograph, you can use on your textures. So here we've got brightness and contrast. We can increase the brightness, lower it. We can increase the contrast, make it really intense, lower it. So there are a lot of options there that you can play with. I'm going to back up a little here. All right, what I want to do next is bring in our cracked layer image. And that we're going to put some cracks on top of our egg. So we're going to go to File, Open, and here's our cracked image texture. Open that file, brings it in. Now remember how we move these into our image? We use the Move tool. We click and hold our texture file and we drag it over to our image and let go, and it drops it in. Now we can move this around. All right, but we're going to need to transform it. We're going to need to make it larger. So we're going to go to Edit, Free Transform, and we're going to grab the little noise in the corner and pull it out. Now, we don't need this to fit the entire image because we're just going to put it over top of the egg. So remember now, once we've got our texture or our layer sized, we got to hit Enter to anchor it. So now let's go make sure we got that layer selected. And what we're going to do is take our layer mask here, and we're going to drag it up to this cracked image, this cracked texture layer. So I'm going to make sure I got that selected. I'm going to hit the alternate key, click and hold, and drag that layer mask up to the top. All right, so now I've got the layer mask just on the egg, but the problem is it's inverted. It's the wrong way. We want the background and the image to be flipped. So I go to the layer mask, and to invert it, remember we hit Control and I. So now we got the cracks just on the egg, but they're kind of dark. So we're going to do some blending. Let's go up here, and I think let's see what overlay. Overlay, we lose some of our highlights there, our shadows. So let's go to, I bet multiply will look good. All right, that looks good. Only it seems to me the cracks are kind of intense, too dark. So we can go over to our opacity, pull that down, drag it down until we get it where we want it. We can get any range of intensity that we want. So I'd leave it probably somewhere right in there. So that looks pretty good to me. Now, let me show you the difference between our original photograph and what we have with our two layers in there. So I'm going to turn these off real quick. There's our original photograph. There it is with our spice added to it. So as you can see, it makes a pretty big difference. And this is so much fun. I hope that you'll take the examples files that I've put in the description and load those up and try some of these things on your own. And like I said, if you need a copy of CS2, there's a link in the description of how you can get a copy of that as well. So, okay, that's pretty much it for the quickie of the day. I hope you've learned something and that you'll use the sample files to do some experimenting on your own. If you want to see more of this type stuff, please hit the subscribe button. You'll be notified of new videos when they come out, and it will help me grow the channel, which I would very much appreciate. Thanks. I hope you have a great day.